All right, so I want to be clear with this one thing because I know you mentioned before. Is there any chance or any knowledge that you have that anybody deleted stuff from his phone?
I mean, Nolan was like a brother to me. Nolan lit up every room he walked in. 4th of July, everybody was out there. Nolan rode out on the Triton, and then we had a Palm Beach, 18 Palm Beach. There was 4 guys on that. The rest of the group, which was ranged from maybe 10 to 15 or 16 people on my buddy's tide line.
Yeah, so y'all pretty much having a good time. And then you guys get ready to leave prematurely.
Right.
And like what explain that, because you guys got there around 10.
Yeah.
It's now 4:30.
Right.
People are still out there partying and
Correct.
they're having a good time, but something happened to where it necessitated you guys to get the boat up and running. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I had a girl come up to me and say, "Hey, your brother just got in a fight." And obviously I have a younger brother, and that's who she was talking about. And I was freaked out. So I walked over to the beach, and I didn't walk over. I ran over. I made a beeline. I didn't talk to anybody. Put my drink down and walked over there. And my brother was kind of angry, and there was a lot going on. But someone was getting pulled away. I don't know who it was. And my brother was like, "Oh, I just got in a fight, and this guy punched me in the face," and I punched him right back. And then went to the ground, and my brother put him in an arm bar. And
was Nolan involved in any of this?
Absolutely not. When I was over there was a bunch of younger guys like my brother's age, and I mean, Nolan. I never saw Nolan over there. Yeah. Absolutely not. And okay, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
So you get ready to go. There's an issue with the boat.
Okay, yeah.
And this is
well,
what
this led up to that. That's what I was saying.
So the fight happened with your brother, or a little scuffle.
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming that it was cleared up.
Right.
You got your brother out of that situation, and then how did you find out that this boat is sinking?
Well, I walk back over, and like we're probably around each other for a little bit. I mean, I wasn't thinking anything of it. I pulled my brother off the beach, and I was just like, "Listen, get in the water, hang out with us, calm down." I mean, he was calm, but I didn't want anything else to happen, And so once I got back over to the boat, I got on the Triton, and the Triton had probably about 6 inches of water up to the transom. And I was freaked out because I'm good friends with Wyatt, and that was his boat. And, no water's coming out, no access water's coming out. And it was a big issue because I think the reason was because there were so many people getting on and off the boat. And at some point, the boat was very, very crowded, and there was just a lot of people on. So that it drags water in. And eventually, I think over time, we were out there for a couple hours. The boat just started filling up with water. So I popped the starboard side hatch, and the battery was completely underwater. And so the motor wouldn't trim down. I mean, my buddy would go to trim it down from the console, and it'd trim down, and then it'd come right back up. And so Wyatt's trying to throw a rear anchor, so we're caught, and he's, yelling at people. Everybody's kind of freaking out. And eventually I'm like yelling at other people, trying to tell them, calm down. Like, the boat could possibly sink, and I'm not paying attention to everyone around me. I was paying attention to my buddy's boat. And that's what all my other friends that were on that boat were doing, trying to solve the problem.
So you're on the boat now. The water is getting up to the point where the boat may be disabled to where you couldn't get it out.
Correct.
From Horn
Correct.
Island. So what happens after that?
Wyatt jumps to the water, tries to throw a rear anchor, and my buddy Meyer, you're sitting looking, trying to pull trash out the bilge. And the bilge is basically a pump that pulls the access water out the boat. So the bilge was failing to work. So any excess water was just sitting in the boat. It wasn't getting pumped out. And I looked over the gunnel, and I looked at the release hole for the bilge, and it was even with the water. So, I mean, we're all freaking out. All of our, we're not focused on anything else other than the boat. Well, then eventually my buddy Bart on the tide line is like, "I'm going to pull y'all out to where we're out of all this all this chaos, because we left at 4:30 and there were still just as many people there, if not more than when we got there. I mean, probably around the same amount. I mean, it was crazy. Like there was a lot of people. And I mean, eventually Bart pulls us out. We left at 4:30, but we really weren't pulled out away from everybody. We were probably about a quarter mile out, and we had the towing strap pulled from, Bart's port side cleat or starboard side cleat, and he was on our starboard side bow. And so it was rubbing on his power pole. So Bart turned around, pulled up next to our boat, and we were just trying to get it situated. So that's when Wyatt called sea tow. And Wyatt was like, calls them, because the cell service isn't great at the island, but you can use your phone, but stuff might not just send. And it's not great. You got maybe one bar, it won't work that well. But once you get a little off the island, you have cell coverage. And even on the island, like I called my mom when we were on the island, it was fine. Like we had enough cell coverage to make a phone call or shoot a text over, but you don't have enough cell coverage to like send a picture, for example. So Wyatt.
So I want to go back.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to touch on that real quick, because the phone thing came up at some point.
Uh-huh.
And so was it when you guys got off the boat?
Yeah.
I mean, were people taking their phones off the boat, or is that not typical? Because I know that Nolan's phone was left on the boat.
Right.
Even though, after you guys had left. So can you explain that? Because I think people need to understand this a little clearer.
Yeah.
Was it typical for people to have their phones left on boats, or did they keep their phones in the water? Or?
Yeah. I mean, everybody kind of goes out to the island to get away from, their phones and everything else. I know I got on the boat to get away from, just the regular world. And no, when you're waist deep in water, no one's carrying their phone in their hand, especially at Horn Island. The water has been very, very murky because of the rain. And it's just very risky. If you're gonna have your phone in the water, some people might for a couple minutes and like maybe taking some pictures of each other. I know a lot of girls like to take pictures in the water at Horn Island. Guys do too. Like people like to take pictures, and but a lot of the pictures you see are on the boat for a reason. And so, no, I mean, if someone is on their phone in the water, they're using it real quick and then putting it right back on the boat. We were all waist deep in water. No one's sitting there scrolling on their phone. I never saw that once, and I've never seen that once, and I've been out the island my whole life. I mean, that's just not something people do. People aren't on their phones, and everybody has their phone, yes, but it's always on the boat. No one's getting off the boat with their phone. So.
And so you guys get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah.
And then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, the last time I saw Nolan was 3:00, and Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie, Katie. And Katie, Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy. I was like just joking with him. And but anyway, Nolan, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving, obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and my buddy yelled for Nolan, get on the boat. We're leaving. The boat's having issues. And like, no, he didn't say that, but he was panicking. Nolan, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolan said, no, I'm staying out here. I'm going to ride in with somebody else. And it's not uncommon to hear, but it's not like my buddy asked him one time. My buddy asked Nolan multiple times to get on the boat. Nolan, get on the boat. Get on the boat. We're leaving. If you're coming, you got to come now. And Nolan made a decision to stay out on the island. And like he said,
How many people heard that? Were there
at least
just a
5
few, or?
to, I mean, everyone that was on our boat right there, because the Palm Beach had already left. My buddy went ahead and went home on the Palm Beach, and three guys on the way back. And Nolan wasn't the only person to ride out there with us and in with somebody else. I mean, we had multiple people in our group that rode out with us and rode in on someone else's boat. And that, like I said, that's not an uncommon thing to do, you know? I mean, a lot of people do that. I could name probably 50 people out there that day that ran out with somebody and ran back in with somebody else. So, I mean, it's not like it's an uncommon thing, but it's not like we just left him there or my friends just left him there. Nolan made a decision to stay on the island after my friends asked him multiple times and told him to get on the boat, and he decided to stay.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody that she heard people yelling
Correct.
for Nolan to get on it. Is that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking, and everybody's texting Katie, you know, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, you know, this is the last time I saw him, you know, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat. And she was right there to see that Nolan decided not to.
Yeah, and so you guys get in the boat, you start to get towed in, and you make it back. Now explain how that you get to the point where you were concerned about Nolan, because obviously you said, "Hey, Nolan, y'all need to," or somebody, not
when
you,
did I get
but
to that point?
You guys had made mention Nolan need to get on a boat.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
You guys get back to wherever you're going.
Right.
Explain that. Did you guys go back to somebody's house, or you guys like what happened there? And then when did you feel like, well, wait a minute, where's Nolan?
Right. Okay. Well, running in was very chaotic. I mean, Nolan chose to stay on the island, so my focus wasn't on anything else other than the boat, you know, because if the boat doesn't get in, then no one gets in, you know. I don't want to sink out there on my buddy's boat, and no one does. But my buddy Wyatt jumped out and pulled the plug on the boat once we kind of got out there, because he got the motor to trim down. And the motor trimmed down, my buddy Wyatt pulled the plug, and we planed off. We moved all the weight to the front of the boat so we could plane off. And eventually we planed off, and the boat was running. So when you're planed off and you have water in the boat and you're hauling, you know, we're going pretty fast. We're going probably 40, 42 miles an hour. And so all that excess water that was built up in the boat is coming out of the boat. So, I mean, that's what we had to do. So we ran into Fort Bayou, and we didn't just run straight to my buddy's grandparents' house. We ran into Fort Bayou. A couple of us jumped in the water, and Wyatt, like, the whole reason for the stop was so Wyatt could hop in and put the plug back in the boat. So then after that, we went and docked it, and I went back to my buddy's house, and we ate and napped for a little bit. It was a long day at the island, so we were all tired. And eventually, we go over to a girlfriend of mine. She was having people over for 4th of July. We were doing like fireworks and stuff, so we all went over there to swim and hang out. And
this infamous picture that I've seen online of Nolan in the water in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Where is this picture associated with? Because you said you guys went back to swim. Nolan wasn't with you. Yeah. So where's this picture at? Like, what's the context around the picture that's been floating?
That picture is taken on June 27th, a week before the 4th of July. We all went to a friend of ours in Pass Christian. We have a lot of friends from Bay St. Louis, Pass Christian, and we all went over there to hang out. And
And Nolan was in that picture?
Nolan was in that picture. And if you look in the picture, my arm is around Nolan in that picture, And I mean, that was a week before the 4th of July. So that picture is not associated within even the same. I mean, that was like a week before. So, yeah.
So you guys are now at swimming and having a good time at a lady friend's house.
Right. I never got to the pool. I talked to her dad for a while. Okay. And I mean, all my friends were downstairs. I went upstairs, talked to her dad. We were talking about boats and stuff. And, I've been with my friends all day. I was just talking to everybody. But
so you talked to the young lady's dad, and then how long was it before you realized, or you guys realized that, well, where's Nolan at?
I mean, I went back downstairs and all my friends were just hanging out, and my buddy Wyatt had addressed, talking about Nolan, and I was like, well, where is Nolan? Have y'all heard from him? And he was like, no, we haven't. And I was like, okay, well, it's a little concerning. Like, I mean, I'm not freaking out or anything, but like, I'm trying to find out where Nolan is. So I texted Javon and I was like, hey, and also a couple other buddies that I had at the island. I was like, hey, have y'all seen Nolan? Did he ride in with y'all? And all the buddies were like, no. Well, I texted Javon and I was like, hey, can you send me Miss Christine's number? Because I haven't heard from Nolan. And if she hasn't heard from Nolan, then I'm calling the Coast Guard. And so eventually, Javon sends me her number.
Who is her? That's
Miss Christine.
Miss Christine is
Nolan's mom.
Nolan's mom. Okay.
Yeah. And I walked down to the dock because, I mean, there was a lot of people at Ava's. Not a lot, but, there was probably 15 of our friends there. And I was just like, walked down to the dock with a couple of my buddies, and I got on the phone I called Miss Christine, called her the first time. She didn't answer. I called her a second time, and I got on the phone with her, and I asked her if she had heard from Nolan. She said no. And I said, all right, well, don't freak out. I'm going to call the Coast Guard. And this was at about 11 o'clock.
So what's your intent in calling the Coast Guard, right? Because right now, Nolan could be with a chick. He could be with somebody else.
Right.
He could have gone back with somebody else. What made you concerned enough that you felt like you couldn't weigh it out anymore? You had to call the Coast Guard.
Well, I mean, like I said, my friends and I have been on the water our whole life. Stuff happens. People die all the time. I know people that have died out there. And, it's a fun place to be, but it's also a very, very dangerous place to be if you're not handling it right. And Nolan, so I hadn't heard from him. And obviously, I'm thinking I'd way rather be safe than sorry. I mean, I would rather call the Coast Guard 100 times and lose my mind over it and my buddy be okay than not, and me not know where he is and him not be okay. And so I called the Coast Guard and I talked to them on the phone for like 20 minutes, gave him a description, what Nolan was wearing, the last place we were at, the last time I saw him, who were we with, what boat we were on, the conditions of the water, just a summary. And I called Miss Christine back after and I talked to her and I said, I got in contact with the Coast Guard. I'm not sure who she called or, what she did, but I think she said she was going to make a couple phone calls to either DMR or Jackson County Sheriff's Office. And I was thinking worst case scenario. Like, I would way rather be safe than sorry about this,
Yeah, so you called. So it seems like you called mom immediately.
Right.
Probably the first phone call that she got from anybody.
That's the first phone call, like, at least I made. And I would assume that's the first phone call she got from anybody because Javon hadn't called her. And, there's nothing wrong with that, but Javon hadn't called her. And, I was just worried about my friend. Stuff happens out there, boat problems. It could be anything. But, there's a lot of stuff that happens out there. And I was just worried about my friend.
And so you guys made that call, nothing that night. And I'm assuming you wake up the next day, and then what happens?
I wake up the next day at about 7:30, and my dad had texted me because obviously Nolan's photo was all over Facebook, and I just saw it everywhere, and I was freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, like I assumed Nolan's just we had been drinking all day, and like that he's just sleeping somewhere, and that he's okay, but I didn't want to believe that if we didn't know for sure. So, next day I woke up and my stepdad walked to my room and he said, hey, like, have they heard anything about Nolan? Like, what's going on? Because I hadn't spoke to him. And he was like, I was like, yeah, no, like, I don't know. I had just gotten up. And he was like, all right, well, we're going and getting on the boat and looking for him. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I got my buddy Ricky, I got my buddy Brooks, I got my buddy Jax. My mom came on the boat with my stepdad and I, and we all went out there and looked. When I got out there was dozens of DMR boats, helicopters, planes flying over Horn Island. And this wasn't just Horn Island. There was also Ship Island they were looking at, I'm sure. and Chandelier Island, Petty Boy. I mean, it wasn't just Horn Island specifically, but where I was at Horn, there were boats everywhere, and not just like random boats, but like, marine resource boats and, cops and, the whole nine. Like, it wasn't like there was just a couple boats looking for Nolan. There was planes and helicopters and, everybody. So.
And then after this, obviously they didn't find Nolan that day.
Right.
And so what was your reaction like when you heard the news, or how did you hear the news that they found Nolan's body?
Well, the next day, it got to be about 1 o'clock on July 5th. And I was like, my mind started to turn. I was like, man, if he's not awake yet, like, where is he? Like, I got very, very worried. And, I was with my buddy Brooks the next day, and we're driving, and my buddies were texting my group chat. They were like, hey, listen. And then I got a phone call from my buddy Trace, and he was like, hey, man, they just found his body. And I was like, I wanted to have hope, but it was really, really hard to have hope when they haven't found your buddy in the last 2 days. And, but there's still a little bit of hope there, like maybe, he's not gone, and maybe, he's okay. But my reaction was just, I was with my buddy Brooks, and I broke down. I mean, I haven't experienced death a lot, but especially with someone I'm as close with as Nolan. And I mean, I broke down, and I sat there on my buddy Brooks' shoulder, and I cried. And I was upset. I made a couple phone calls to my buddies and checked up on my buddies, because, I care about my buddies too. I mean, like, we're all experienced this. Like, we all realized at the same time. We all heard the news at the same time. Like, he's gone. And so it was really, really hard on me. I mean, I've never experienced something like this, and it was traumatic. I mean, I could tell you where and when I was there, when I got that phone call, where I was. And I just remember, like, it was insane. Like, I can't even put into words how upset I was, and how upset my friends were. So.
And then comes the stories and the backlash and the craziness. I mean, you guys are now hearing that you're responsible for it. You did it. You killed Nolan. So what was the next step? Did you guys ever engage with police, or?
Yeah. So the first time I talked to the police was July 7th. I talked to the lead investigator, and I told him my whole story, top to bottom. Dotted every I, crossed every T. I told them everything I knew, every little detail. I mean, everything I could, tell them to try to figure something out,
Were you the only one to talk to the cops, or?
No, of course
some
not.
Other guys?
Every person that was included, especially, the guys that you see on social media, everybody cooperated with the police fully. Nolan was with us on the way out, and he rode out on the boats with us. So, I mean, we were the first people to get questioned. I mean, we cooperated with the police the first time they called us, and, we talked to them, as soon as they needed, and we were fully cooperative.
And we see Benjamin Crump coming to town, made it about race.
Right.
What's your feeling about that? Do you think that any of this has anything to do with race, or, because, I mean, obviously something happened to Nolan. It appears that you guys may not have been involved at all. When I say may not, it's no evidence that you were involved at all.
Right.
You guys had left.
Right.
But do you think that there's a racial component to any of this?
Of course not. I mean, I think if Nolan ever felt the most little bit uncomfortable around us, which we never gave him a reason to, but if he did, he wouldn't hang out around us. But if you go look on, like, my friends have had Nolan posted all over our social medias, since freshman year in high school. Like, if Nolan ever felt uncomfortable with us, why would he be hanging out with us all the time? I mean, every day we're back from college, we hang out, and we're around each other all the time. So absolutely not. I would never look at Nolan any other way than I would any of my other friends. I mean, he was like a brother to me.
You guys had been interviewed by law enforcement. All of you guys have given statements. But then I think that there's a part associated with this that's being rumored out in the public, and that is the situation with the cell phone, potential deletion of messages. When did that occur, and what happened there?